we are discussing on the subject judgment given by the appellate tribunal on Maharera order dated 11th March 2019, whereby the Honorable Maharera has directed the promoter to pay penalty of 30 lakhs and register the project, failing which additional penalty will be levied. The order was challenged before the Honorable Appellate Tribunal, and two members of the Appellate Tribunal have allowed the appeal, whereas one Honorable Judicial member dissented. In today's discussion, I am highlighting certain possibilities on which one can disagree with the judgment of the Honorable Tribunal, whereas my colleague friend Advocate Vishwajit Mukherjee will highlight the grounds on which the Honorable Tribunal has given the judgment. So my case is basically based on five topics. Number one, technical. Number two, ordinary meaning. Number three, legal interpretation. Number four, legislative history. And number five, High Court judgments on RERA. So my first ground is technical. First point is that majority members have not considered the points highlighted by Honorable dissenting member at para 60 of the appellate judgment. Number two, this is a typical case where two members of Honorable Tribunal have allowed the appeal, whereas one member has dissented. However, issue is that in this case, or like this case, unintentionally, Honorable Tribunal's technical members' view gets more weightage and become a decisive factor in deciding a matter which is purely based on law points. So these are my technical grounds. Next ground is popular sense or ordinary meaning. Friends, it appears that the word or used in section 3 subsection 2a is also used for several meaning in the RERA Act. It is not the case that or is used only for a one meaning. It has been used for several meanings in the RERA as per the grammatical rules. So as per the grammatical or ordinary meaning, it appears that there are two different categories. But when this provision is applied to cases, and particularly cases like of the subject matter, a situation arises where the case falls in two categories, that is both the categories. In such cases, the result is negative, and therefore it appears that both the categories, though are separate, becomes two conditions for such cases, and that's why both the conditions must be satisfied. Friends, as per this plain language, it may not say so but in such cases, these two conditions have to be complied with by the promoter to get the exemption under section 3 subsection 2a. Therefore, the interpretation given by Honorable Maharera appears to be correct, which says that if the area of the land does not exceed 500, then the registration is not required. Similarly, if the number of apartments does not exceed 8, then registration is not required in normal cases. But in the cases like of the subject matter, if the land does not exceed 500 meters, but The number of apartments exceeds 8, and therefore the registration of the project is necessary, and the promoter will be able to get the exemption under this section. Therefore, this section has to be interpreted as per the circumstances of the each case, is my view. The next ground is legal interpretation. Honorable Supreme Court has given a test for such cases. In the case of Himachal Pradesh versus Pawan Kumar in 2005, the 3 judges bench of Honorable Supreme Court held, and I am quoting para 7, one of the basic principles of interpretation of statute is to construe them according to plain, literal, and grammatical meaning of the words. If that is contrary or inconsistent with any expressed intention or declared purposes of the statute, or if it would involve any absurdity, repugnancy, or inconsistency, the grammatical sense then must be modified, extended, or abridged, so far as to avoid such an inconvenience, but no further. So the test is clear that if the interpretation of such an statute result into any absurdity, repugnancy, or inconsistency, then such meaning has to be modified. In this case, the word or is considered is according to plain legal and grammatical meaning, then it would be inconsistent with the objects of RERA, particularly under section 11, subsection 4E and F, section 14, 15, 17, and 34 of RERA, and section 10 of MOFA, read with section 88 of RERA. Then these objectives under these sections would remain repugnant, and the RERA would not be able to achieve these objects in such cases. The explanation given to the section 3 provides clarification to avoid possible misunderstanding on account of proviso to the section 3 subsection 2A. And as per the provisions of Maharashtra Cooperative Societies Act, to form a society, there must be 8 number of apartments. So, the provision in section 3, subsection 2A, thus helps in avoiding conflict with these provisions regarding formation of society, transfer of allottees. Thus, even the legislature favors the clarity and wants to avoid any conflict. Therefore, the view of the majority members, according to my view, is not proper and fails to satisfy the test given by the Honorable Supreme Court. For these reasons, interpretation of majority members is not proper. Now, the next ground is legislative history. It appears that at draft stage, various suggestions were made for area as well as apartments. For area, limit was given 4,000 and then 1,500 and even 100. And for apartments, suggestions were given for 12, 8, 3 and even 0. It appears that proviso to the section 3, subsection 2A was added mainly to take care of such suggestion so that any particular state can make modification as per the specific requirements of that stage. However, the legislature has taken care that the upper limit cannot be changed by any state. The explanation is added to the section 3, provides clarification, and the further discussion regarding clause 3 in standing committee's report will help us. Number 1, the reason for providing exception was on the belief that the interface between allottees and promoters in smaller projects is smoother and without any issue. But it is missing in small developments, and the information asymmetry is more in large projects. This is a narrow view. Next point is, it appears that the purpose of fixing category of 500 square meters instead of 4,000, 1,000 or 100 was on the feeling that large number of projects will be excluded from getting registered with the project with the authority, and therefore the middle class will suffer. This is a broader view. It appears that the entire discussion regarding subsection 3.2 or section 3 was not focused on whether both the conditions shall be applied or not, but the discussion appears to be focused to provide two type of categories, namely land and number of apartments. So the intention was to avoid smaller projects from getting registration so as not to burden the system. The addition of proviso and explanation note to the section 3 reflects the intention of legislature was very clear that no project up to 8 apartments can escape from registration. Therefore, if number of apartments is 8 or more than 8, the prescribed limit, the benefit of exception was not available for such projects. Interpretation of section 3 subsection 2a given by the majority members therefore does not help us to achieve these objects of RERA and move on. In fact, if this interpretation is accepted, many projects would be escaped from getting registered, and it may provide a loophole for the dubious promoters who want to escape from the obligation of getting project registered. And therefore, the view of the majority members is not proper. My next ground is High Court judgments on RERA. In Neel Kamal judgment at para 124, Honorable High Court observed the purpose of the RERA was that under one umbrella, under one law and one regulation, all the issues will be tried and resolved. Similarly, at para 255, the intention of RERA is to bring the complaints of allottees before one authority and simplify the process. It appears from the advertisements of the project at magicbricks.com that the project was announced in February 2013 and the completion date proposed was June 2015. Project was of one tower having 6 floors approximately and 48 flats or units. Whereas the impugned order shows that the promoter has disclosed that there were 31 units only. Thus, there appears issues regarding delay, change in plan, and etc. If the project is not registered, all such issues cannot be addressed by MAHRERA. and therefore, on these grounds also, the view of the majority members is not perfect. And it is inconsistent with the observation of Honorable High Court in Nilkamal judgment. Now the legal interpretation. We have seen that the taste given by the Supreme Court for such cases is not satisfied by this judgment, and therefore the view of the Honorable Appellate Tribunal's majority members does not appear proper. So on all these grounds, it is clear that the view of the Honorable Appellate Tribunal's majority members that if one condition is satisfied, then the project is registered is not proper, because this project would escape from the main obligation and main objective of RERA to provide protection to the interest of the allottees, and various obligations of the promoter will not be addressed properly. And therefore, as per my view, the view of majority members in this judgment does not appear proper. Now I request my colleague Advocate Biswajit to highlight the grounds on which the appellate tribunal has decided the case. Thank you. Over to Biswajit.
Everyone. The topic for discussion today is the interpretation of Section 32A of the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act 2016. Now, before we start this discussion, it will be important to say that the reason we are having this discussion is only for academic purpose. We are not here to answer the questions on merits. We are only discussing it from an academic point of view. Either of the conditions, if fulfilled, you don't have to register the project with RERA. That is the ordinary meaning of the word or. And that is accepted by the majority, that is accepted by the dissenting member, and that is in fact accepted by Mr. Dedia when he made his arguments. But it is what they say that if the word or is given to mean what it ordinarily means, then this will run contrary to what the intention of the legislature has been in bringing about this act. Now, how do we ascertain the intention of this legislature? Do we have any documents supporting the intention of the legislature? The answer before us is yes, there are documents. In fact, there are two documents which clearly point out what the intention of the legislature was when drafting this specific provision. Now, the very first document that we have, and that was before the appellate tribunal also, was the recommendations made by the standing committee. The second document is the recommendation made by the select committee. Now, it will be important and very interesting to note what the standing committee says. The standing committee indeed recommends the replacement of the word or. It seeks to add one more word, and that is without any doubt the word and. So the word or, which stands today, if the recommendations of the standing committee were to be accepted, would have had been and or. Now the recommendations of the select committee goes a step ahead. The select committee altogether says the word or should be replaced by and. That clearly meant that as if the recommendation of this select committee was to be accepted, both these conditions were to be read together and not very independent. But as we have it today, the final act that has come out, both the recommendations have not been accepted. Now, what does this say? This clearly says the intention of the legislature in not accepting the recommendations of the select committee and the standing committee was to retain the ordinary meaning of the word or. If they had to use the word and, they would have indeed accepted the recommendation of both the committees, but they have not done it. Now, as I said, this section is an exception to the rule. The rule says every project has to be registered with the authority. The rule says there are some exceptions which, if fulfilled, should not be registered. This should be given a narrower meaning, is what is being said. But the intention of the legislature has to be accepted. And as I said, they intended to use the ordinary meaning of the word or. Now, there is a second very interesting point that has come out. The original bill, as it was tabled, though it had the word or, the threshold that we have today, that is 500 square meters, and the number of apartments being 8, then were 1000 square meters and 12. The recommendations of the select committee, the standing committee, and also some of the suggestions given by the consumer association and the registered resident welfare associations sought to lower this threshold. The select committee and the standing committee says a constructible area to avail of this exception should be less than 100 square meters, and the number of apartments must be 3. The consumer associations and the welfare associations say there should not be any exception at all. So what has happened is, this suggestion of the standing committee, the select committee, and the consumer associations were heeded by the legislature. They have not accepted that in entirety, but what they have done is, what was originally 1000 was brought down to 500. What was originally 12 was brought down to 8. So the exception has been lowered, but the word or remains. So the question is, we have the intention of the legislature. We have the intention of the legislature which says the word has to be used is or. So today, by having a judicial interpretation, can that be replaced by saying no, the intention of the legislature was something else, the spirit of the act is something else, so we must read something else into the act, even though we have the intention very clear before us. Now there is the third interesting point that we have is, the explanation to this section reads, if an appropriate government thinks fit, they may lower the limit. So what is 508? 500 square meters of land and the number of apartments being 8, they can be readily reduced by the appropriate government if they deem fit. So there is no requirement today to read into something in the act which was not there. If you don't want to give an exception, you can lower it to 0. And there is a cap on the appropriate government that they cannot increase this threshold. The intention of the legislature is very clear. They have given the appropriate government enough leeway to navigate and somehow reduce this threshold also. So I don't think so there is any infirmity in what the appellate tribunal says. The intention is just clear, and it will be, as I say, a judicial transgression if we somehow say the intention is something else. Also, do we understand? Therefore, I fully support what the appellate tribunal's majority judgment is, and that is the law. Now, the rest is left up to what happens in the appeal, if any is preferred. But today, I stand by what the appellate tribunal's majority says. I'll now hand over to Mr. Dedia to finish his concluding arguments.
Thank you, Biswajit. My colleague Biswajit has wonderfully explained the section as well as history and his point of view to support the appellate tribunal's judgment. Now I will conclude as under that irrespective of the effect of appellate judgment on the issue or any future High Court's or Supreme Court's judgment on this topic, this law and the issues raised in the appeal are yet to be finally decided by the higher courts, and therefore this is a good reason for filing a second appeal on this judgment. Further, the standing committee report actually and in clear words, confirm and support the allottees. Therefore, the majority's member view is not proper, and it is the judgment also failed to satisfy the taste of the Honorable Supreme Court in case of HP versus Pawan Kumar. The view that registration of smaller project will create a burden is of the view taken in the year 2013, and now we are in 2019-20, and with a technical advancement, this cannot be an excuse to exclude so many smaller projects. In fact, many small projects have been registered, at least in Mumbai, and therefore this issue of burden on the system is not relevant as far as metro cities like Mumbai, Noida, Pune, etc. The real estate is a very complicated subject, and the allottees cannot be deprived of their statutory right to get real-time information and the documents from the promoters. And therefore, by not registering the projects, the allottees will suffer a lot. All the viewers are requested to give their valuable opinion on the topic and enhance the knowledge and understanding on the subject matter. Thank you. Over to Viswajit.
Thank you, Mr. Didia. Now, the last concluding point that I wish to make before we end this will be we as real estate advocates to understand that at this point of time, the law is clear. It says that only one of the conditions have to be satisfied. Now, whenever that happens, whenever the matter is decided by the High Court, if any appeal is preferred, so there is a paranoia around these two conditions. It is said that these two conditions will somehow open up a nasty sort of a Pandora's box where a large number of projects may be exempted from registration. Well, that is not right. That is not the very basic idea. Why do I say so is very clear. Now, the number of apartments that you can construct over an amount of land is sort of limited. There cannot be a question, as I frequently say, there cannot be a case where a skyscraper is standing on a 500 square meters of land. That is not possible. It will be equally absurd to suggest that a developer with a sole intention to somehow get an exception from registration with the authority will construct only 8 apartments even if he has acres of land. So as I said, both these conditions are not independent to each other. They are related to each other, and that is the reason the use of the word or will not result into a large number of real estate projects getting accepted. Now, the second thing is, as I said, the intention of legislature is clear. Everybody of us understands legislature is not bound by the recommendations made by the standard. They are treated as important, but the recommendations will not have a binding effect to the legislature. In fact, it will be the contrary. That if a recommendation is not accepted, that means the recommendation was contrary to what the legislature said. And therefore, in this case, the ordinary meaning of the word or has to be used. It will be very important to give an illustration. As I said, in the case there is a notice given by the school that your child need not come to school if it rains or if the school bus does not arrive. The ordinary meaning is very clear that either of these conditions being fulfilled, your child does not have to go to school. If it rains, irrespective of the fact that the bus comes or not, you don't have to send your children to school. The second is if the school bus does not come, irrespective of whether it rains or not, you don't have to send your children to school. So as I said, the intention we have before us, the ordinary meaning we have before us, and the third is the explanation we have before us. The threshold can be reduced if we are apprehensive that this can be used by some promoters to get out of the ambit of RERA, the threshold can be lower. But to achieve that motive, I don't think so. The interpretation of the word "or" should be taken as something else other than the ordinary meaning. There are remedies given to you that can be easily availed of. And as Mrs. Idia mentioned that the act was originally tabled in the year 2013. Today the circumstances might change. So what you need is an amendment and not a judicial interpretation to change the meaning of that. So that is how I would like to end. I would request all our viewers to give their valuable suggestions to enhance our limited knowledge. Thank you.